Bahamas. So what is the most critical criterion for citizenship outside of being born in the Bahamas?
I would say the most critical criterion is that the person should be able to identify with the Bahamian culture. And that entails our language, our pastimes, our religiosity, if you will.
Yes, yes.
Because at base, all of us, at least my generation, and I think the one just behind me and the ones before, were really, we were formed around the church, whether it was Anglican, Baptist, Church of God, Prophecies, Brethren, whatever it was, we were formed around. And the second most important is that we should have a common language. English language is our mother tongue. It's my mother tongue. I don't know what any other mother tongue. Maybe I can do a smattering of Spanish and maybe a smattering of Latin, or maybe I can learn French. But English is our tongue. If we do not have the mode of communication in the same language, it's difficult to have a common ideal at the end. No point in me speaking to you if you're speaking Patois. You don't understand what I say, and I don't understand what you say. So those are the two most important: culture and the value system, in other words, because the culture is really what underpins the value system.
Yes, yes.
If it becomes the law that I must allow, it's going to be another touchy subject, people to come in my country and tell me I must accept same-sex marriage when I believe in Judeo-Christian values. And that's a problem for me, as a Bahamian, because it is not something that I would accept. And I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how rich you are. No matter what you do, you cannot change what God has said is an abomination into something that is acceptable to me. Because even if it's acceptable to me because you're my relative, that doesn't make it acceptable to God. And in the end, he's the final judge. That is the standard I try to adopt to all my undertakings. Because at the end of the day, I must answer to it.
Thank you so much, Dame. That is a good question. We do have some more questions. I just wanted to say, telling on what Pastor Glenroy said, Rolle said, and we're going to go into the next panelist, is that what the founders intended for the nation, obviously, in the creation of the Bahamas, goes along with what you're saying, the values of the Bahamian people. Even though we weren't Bahamian tribe in 1973, there was a value system in terms of what the people wanted, what was their values. And that's why the book, How to Reconstruct a Nation, which is my book here, speaks about that, speaks about the fact that we need to redefine, or at least define, bring again to the front what it means to be Bahamian. So outside of just the idea of being born in the Bahamas, as you said, Dame, we need to be committed to the idea of what the values of this country is all about, and what we should be as a people, and what we present to the world. And one more idea in this regard, and I think I want the host to ask those few questions, and then we're going to go into the next speaker. Of course, the book Reset, this is the book of Pastor Glen, Rolle, The Destiny of a Sovereign Nation. All of these books, as part of this symposium, brings these values together, brings the values of the preamble of the Constitution that says, as a people, this is who we are. And when we formed the nation, we wanted it based on who we are as a people and how we should move forward. And that is what I believe is going to be determined as, in terms of pathway to citizenship. Someone asked a question outside of being born in the Bahamas, but actually being a Bahamian. Who is a Bahamian? That's more than just if you're born here, you're born here. Madam Chair, ask one or two more questions, and then let's go to the next panelist.
Yes, thank you. I think the other two questions that I see are somewhat related, so I'm going to combine them. The first is it wrong for Bahamians to be concerned about persons who do not respect our faith in Jehovah God getting citizenship easily? And the other question, which I think is sort of similar, should we allow persons to get citizenship who burn our national flag? So is it wrong to be concerned about persons who do not respect our faith in Jehovah God getting citizenship easily? And should we give citizenship to people who burn our national flag?
My answer will be kind of, I'll try to keep it as clear as I can. With regard to people who do not respect our belief in Jehovah God, we probably welcome millions of those in terms of tourists every year. I don't know that you'd give them all citizenship. I think it would depend on the individual application. But in addition to that, I wondered about those persons who were given citizenship, who were able to purchase it more or less by investing in the country and then getting some citizenship, even though they hadn't lived here that long.
Yeah.
And I remember one particular case. It wasn't citizenship; it was permanent residence. The late actress who came here and was given permanent residence within 3 weeks, didn't have a real home here, and she was given it. And she would her moral standard was not the highest. I don't know that she was a Christian or anything, but so be it. The other part about it, people burning our national flag. It is one of the things I mentioned in a paper I presented last year, not last year. I think it was last year, 2020. I sent it to the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister, the then Attorney General, then Minister of Immigration. It was a paper in response to the draft bill on citizenship, nationality, citizenship, and immigration, and immigration, citizenship, and nationality. How should you phrase it? Nationality, Immigration, and Asylum Bill of 2018, presented by Dame Anita Allen to the then government, right? And in relation to that bill, I had indicated that the citizenship provisions in this bill were not what they should be, and that in fact, people who do not respect our national flag should not be given citizenship. Because it's one of our national emblems, it's one of the things that show our loyalty to the principles, the culture in this country. When we used to represents us. So when you disrespect us. Now somebody may think, well, oh, that's so wicked, that's so small-minded and petty. It's not small-minded or petty. Nationality is something bigger than any individual. And it's important that you will understand how important nationality is. You can't go to any other country as a Bahamian and demand to be let in. You have to get permission to that. Yeah, you have a right. Nobody can stop you. If they try to stop you, they could be in some dead deep problems. So basically, that is my view on it. People don't respect Jehovah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I
Well
just,
said.
People who
can I
don't
just
respect
make a
people who
statement?
don't respect Jehovah, how can they truthfully swear an oath to respect our laws and our constitution?
Yeah. Madam Sawyer, can you make a comment, because right now in the Bahamas we are faced with significant what I call external pressure, the need for us, and I like how you tied our religiosity to a culture, a system, a way of life, which I think flows hand in hand. Can you speak to it? Almost seems as if we have this sense of this obligation to, even from a neighbor point of view, to carry out what I would refer to as laws, whether they come from the United Nations or other nations, and it seemed to be imposed upon us, even at the expense of our own laws and value system. Can you speak generally to that and perhaps share your own sense of concern in that area, without necessarily speaking specifically anything, but just the sense that we seem driven by external pressure, and the idea of sovereignty seemed to be secondary to who we were meant to be in the context of nation building?
Yeah. Pastor Rolle, if you forgive me, just talking back not too far, the pandemic was imposed on us by the World Health Organization, who we pay. We send our money to the world, to the United Nations, and they fly around the world on our money, and then they come and tell us what to do in our country.
Yes.
I did not know that that was the reason the United Nations was created. The mix to not only micromanage the entire Bahamas, but to tell us what we must do in relation to our marital laws,
Yes.
in relation to our sexual laws, in relation to abortion. They're now trying to tell us we must make it a right for a woman to be able to kill her unborn child. That goes completely contrary. Everything Judeo-Christians and Christianity stands for. It is wrong to take a life. The only time it is acceptable is if it's self-defense or defense of another. So that a mother whose life is in danger because of the pregnancy, the doctors will usually choose the mother's life, unless she chooses not to. Those are things that are very, very deep and serious, and they go to the heart of humanity. No organization has the right to dictate to another nation, to another people, to another person, how they must think. That is what this whole thing has been about, telling us how to think. And I resent it personally. And I hope sufficiently educated and sensible behaviors, because some are educated without sense, will understand that no one has the right to tell you how to think.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
They must respect your ability to think for yourself.
Okay, thank you.
I am always
Did I help?
by your. I mean, not only it helps, I think it moves all of us. I think this is a conversation that all of us need to have in terms of what does it really mean to be Bahamian is to be sovereign. This idea that people can say we are obligated to, I find to be very, very offensive. And I join you, Madam Dames, in saying, hopefully, that more of us, as we do this forum, and I'm sure this is the purpose why Madam Chair sort of lift this platform, so that we can once again engage in that kind of way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pastor Rolle. Madam Sawyer, just one last question.
Okay.
Can the Bahamas move forward in addressing its citizenship concerns without a definitive address of the Haitian issue?
Sorry, just read the last part for me.
Yes. How can the Bahamas move forward in addressing its citizenship concerns without a definitive address of the Haitian issue?
I have not a clue. I don't think they can. I think if they decide to do it, they should do a better job of educating the public on what the issues really are, and give the public a really important opportunity to respond with real knowledge of what the issue entails, not what they want you to believe, but what is. They must give you the facts and let you decide. That is what they have not done in any of the referendum they've had. They've never given you the facts. And this is not a necessary referendum question. It's a question of survival of the nation. This is deeper than a referendum on an issue.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful start in segment 1. We're now going to move to segment 2. And this is over to you now, Pastor Glenroy.
Thank you so much. I just want to say this in closing, and I will transition to the introduction of our second presenter. I think, Madam Dame, your voice is a trusted voice, and in a nation that is skeptical of so many institutions, we not only thank you for this platform, but I think your voice be strengthened so that people around the world can hear your sense of reasoning and perspective to these national issues. Our second presenter, Dr. Anthony Hamilton. I am accustomed to just saying Tony, friend for many years, is a resident expert. As a resident expert, lends insight into national development through his leadership in various civil society organizations. He is the current president of Civil Society Bahamas. You would note that he wears many hats. Chair of the Accountable Governance Committee, Organization for Responsible Governance, President of the Bahamas Association of Air Transport Operators, Vice Chairman of the Airline Operators Council at the Lynden Pinland International Airport, Director of Administrative for Southern Air Charter Company Limited, Chair of the Patient and Family Advocacy Committee, Princess Margaret Hospital, Director of Ride Bahamas Transportation Company, and Director of WMS International. Dr. Hamilton, our presenter, holds a doctorate, master, and bachelor of theology from Christian Life School of Theology, Columbus, Georgia, USA, an Associate of Arts in Business Administration from the College of the Bahamas, a business diploma from the University of Wisconsin, certification in arbitration and leadership skill. Dr. Hamilton is married to Ms. Valderine Hamilton, an associate professor at the University of Bahamas, and their union has been blessed with 3 children, Alan, whom is now deceased, Alvin, and Vanya. We're happy to have him on this platform, happy for the dialogue that he shall bring, and happy for his leadership even as we discuss these things. As Madam Dames indicated, it is going to require the civil society to engage in these kind of conversation. I turn it over to you, Madam Moderator, and Dr. Hamilton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Are we receiving good audio?
Good evening.
Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Protocol having been established, I firstly want to thank the Honorable Dame Joan Sawyer for her excellent, eloquent representation. I'm always encouraged when we have the opportunity to hear from Dame Joan Sawyer. And this evening is no exception to that expectation of her delivery. I'm privileged to be a part of this team this evening to make this representation. I want to thank the leadership of Josiah Institute and its associates for the opportunity to make this strategic contribution to nation building, and specifically the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I'm very concerned that this evening is going to make a difference in all of our lives, and the Honorable Dame Sawyer has already initiated that process. We will not be the same individuals coming into this meeting when we would have left this meeting this evening. I'm very confident of that. I thank you in advance for the collective support for this evening's presentation as a collective body. I'm going to take this from the perspective of the civil society sector. I'm taking a little different spin. I've been given liberty to do that. And so this evening I should seek to make a unique approach to this topic, who is a Bahamian. My title, I'll classify this in a short and long title, a long and short title. The long title being the delegated authority. I forgot to put my camera on here. Let's just do this so we'd be definitely in the social ranks, so we can communicate properly. The long title, as I would have indicated, delegated authority, taking responsibility. And this is being done remembering the vision or dream of 49 years later, as Dame would have made representation to already in our previous contributions. Coming on the heels of 49 years later and moving towards the 50th anniversary, the short title I would give this evening would be the pregnancy test. And I'll seek to expand this as we go along. Having said that, I want to draw our attention to a statement from our forefathers. It's a statement that I've coined over the years, taking a look at some things in our nation. The forefather statement I refer to as with respect to the preamble of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Our forefathers and foremothers expressed a vision for the nation of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and likewise expectations of the citizenry and residents of same. And so this evening, I'm proud to acknowledge the contributions of our forefathers and foremothers as we continue with our sharing this evening. I thought to make an observation here with regard to DNA. And as Dame was sharing, it just reinforced what I'm about to share with you. There are four things I'd like to bring to your attention for consideration. In business, we refer to planning, organizing, implementing, and evaluating. And this evaluation process, I hope this evening that we can help you to be provoked, stimulated, and incentivized as we share with you this evening. And those four items, one would be the DNA of the preamble of and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, being number one. Number two being the DNA of Bahamians. Thirdly, the DNA of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and that's speaking to New Providence and the Family Islands. Oftentimes, we engage our dialogue and conversations, and we're very much Nassau-centric. That's a failure in the past, and we need to definitely give consideration, as Dane would have referenced the experience in Abaco, moving towards our independence. So we must always give consideration to New Providence and the Family Islands. I notice we have some folks on the Family Islands with us even this evening. Fourthly, the DNA of the culture of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and Dane touched a little bit in connection with that as well. The objective, two objectives from where I sit this evening would be to facilitate our learning together in an interactive and participatory environment and atmosphere. Secondly, to understand the power of partnerships, team, and delegated authority. Practical examples of this would be the families, and we think of father, mother, children, accountability, the religious community, spiritual accountability, the business community, trade and commerce accountability, and fourthly, the government, political accountability. As we continue, citizenry and residents. Another statement for your hearing. People are the most important assets and investments of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I repeat, people are the most important assets and investments of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And when we speak to that, we're speaking to the quality of life for each citizen and resident of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, which connotes our decisions, choices, and the rest of it in the best interest of the citizenry and residents or the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This ought to be our critical priority. Moving along, the rule of law, as Dane would have been addressing, and two acronyms, LET law, LET being a legal environment of truth, law representing a legal authority working. As we move further, I bring to your attention something I refer to as the cry, the call, and the response, a process of implosion for an explosion, reflective of our needs, personnel, and the results-oriented environment and atmosphere. The Great Commission, as I refer to this, would speak to individuals, families, and the families representing the immediate and extended family, the faith-based communities, our nation, the region, and the world. And I want to highlight two specific words here in connection with this, speaking to the Great Commission. Firstly, desire. And when we speak to desire, we're speaking of having some companions with desire, and that those companions would be willingness, intimacy, and pregnancy, which results in birth or death, life or death, birth or a choice of aborting. Secondly, choice. The companions of choice would be challenge, decisions, and tests. Tests, this choice aspect speaking to being able to pass the test or fail, or speaking to good or evil. And as we reflect there, I mentioned earlier the short title being the pregnancy test, and that's what we're speaking to here with regard to pregnancy tests, speaking to our desires and our choices, and understanding that the result of our desires and choices produces a pregnancy, and the pregnancy test is a matter of our evaluating what the end result ought to be with regard to the pregnancy test. I speak to that in light of the National Development Plan. We would note, many of us will be aware of the fact that there's need for national recognition and acknowledgement of an effective participation by our citizenry and residents, generating a document that would be titled the Vision 2040, which is the National Development Plan document for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And that was a serious testament of the fact that our people were willing to work together to seek to identify the challenges, the situations and circumstances that were necessary for our attention to be given with regard to the forward, upward, onward together movement of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. That again reminds us of the preamble of the Constitution. And as I speak to the preamble of the Constitution, it's something that engendered a response with regard to who's a Bahamian, who is a Bahamian. And when I speak to that, taking in consideration our forefathers' vision of forward, upward, onward together, this would have been coined as a result of that. As a definition, an individual or individuals who demonstrate the spirit of unity with Bahamian values and practices, the principle of the spiritual, socioeconomic, and cultural identification of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, wherever they are found in the world. And I repeat, an individual or individuals who demonstrate the spirit of unity with Bahamian values and practices the principle of the spiritual, socioeconomic, and cultural identification of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, wherever they are found in the world. Again, reflecting on the role of civil society, Bahamas in particular, the organization that happened to be president at this time, with the mandate of making representation on the part of the citizenry. And we are fortunate as the apex body of civil society for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to have the awesome responsibility of providing leadership for the NGOs in our country. And we reflect, we had some significant experiences with regard to the Dorian experience and COVID-19 experience, and the valuable contribution being made by NGOs. Why am I mentioning this? We spoke to our theme of the evening, as we would have coined it, with respect to delegated authority and taking responsibility, and then moving to the pregnancy test. We reminded you of the fact that in business, we speak to planning, organizing, implementing, and then the evaluation process. And the purpose of that is to determine whether we are successful, the quality of success that we've achieved, and if we were failing, to identify gaps and differences so we can address it collectively. And this is our responsibility as citizens and residents of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And that's the undergirding portfolio of civil society of Bahamas with regard to the empowerment of our citizenry and encouraging them to find themselves engaged in clusters which represent areas of the society that we can speak to, ensuring that we have a wholesome and healthy environment and atmosphere to the benefit of every citizen and resident of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, which we refer to them as the community stakeholders empowerment. So we'd have civil society organizations, which we refer to as CSOs, non-governmental organizations, which we refer to as NGOs, faith-based organizations that we refer to as FBOs, the not-for-profit organizations that we refer to as NPOs. And at this juncture, I'd like to tie two arenas together. Firstly, the NGOs, and then the cooperatives. I do this because it is a critical thing with regard to the empowerment of the citizenry, and true empowerment, that we are in a position where we can, in a financial and socioeconomic manner, be able to stand and still stand with regard to this nation, and particularly when we have serious crisis situations coming about where the nation is tested. And many of us will be aware of the fact that post-Dorian, we were experiencing some challenges. Dorian came and accentuated those challenges. And it actually put every Bahamian, every citizen and resident in position to draw deep on themselves and then to work together with regard to bringing corrective action. Now, there's a diagram in the civil society sector, particularly for civil society Bahamas, that referred to as the tripartite governance diagram. And in this diagram, we speak to two bites of the cherry, speaking again to the delegated authority of the citizenry to the government, and then the citizenry taking responsibility in both instances. And what are we speaking to? This is the whole notion of encouraging good governance by way of the tripartite governance structure. We referenced earlier two little words, let and law, the legal environment of truth, and the legal authority working the rule of law with accountability. In that diagram that I'm referencing of the tripartite governance, it has three tiers. The first tier would be with regard to the citizenry, acknowledging that the citizenry, who are voters and taxpayers, delegate authority to the government with regard to governance. The second tier of our citizenry would be reflecting of the business community, where we have taxpayers and voters. It flips from voters to taxpayers, taxpayers to voters by way of the business community, which all emanate out of the civil society sector. All of us are citizens and residents of the Commonwealth of Bahamas. The third tier would be reflective of our political leadership in governance, where the government would be the tax collector and dispenser of the taxes. Outside of this third tier would be the NGOs, CSOs, that refer to them as the civil society organizations, and the non-governmental organizations. What happens here is the second bite of the cherry, because in the first instance, the citizenry would be the voters and the taxpayers who would elect officials, which would be the political leaders, to form the government, which would be generating the laws that govern the country.